want to start us off with where you're at in life? And
Sure. You know, the fun thing about talking about something like that is you never have to prepare, right?
right,
Because it's your journey. Like, only you know your journey, right?
right,
So where I am right now is really focused on an initiative that's called Take My Power Back Initiative. And it's really about empowering people to be in the driver's seat for their own health without a doctor, using the natural gifts that we were all given at birth, and to raise awareness about that. So, yeah, that's where I am right now.
Talk to us a little bit how that journey to get to that initiative started, and maybe that starts with how you got into medicine, into this field.
Yes, how I got into medicine. So I really didn't think I was going to get into medicine, because my father is an elementary particle physicist who was at Princeton when I was born. And my whole life I'd been hearing about the fact that I would become a physicist. So I was aimed for physics. And when I went to India to do boarding school in India, I ended up being a competitive athlete and singing and dancing and doing artwork. And it was going really well until I had what I call my first opportunity to see another side of medicine, which happened when I got an injection of cholera to participate in the national competition on the 200-meter race. So I was like an athlete, having so much fun. And 2 weeks after that, I collapsed on the field, went into a coma, had complete liver failure, and needed all these blood transfusions. And basically they said that I wouldn't make it. And I did, obviously, because I'm sitting here so many years later, right? But what I saw there is that they really didn't have anything. I was in a 40-person ward, in a general ward, and they were just giving me IVs and blood, and it was very much supportive therapy. But while I was lying in that bed, I kept seeing this, in my coma, this framed picture of Jesus Christ above my bed. And when I woke up, I asked the nurse, when I finally could see, because I woke up blind, where is that picture of Jesus Christ that was above this bed? And she's like, no, you're in a general ward, look at the walls, there's nothing on the walls. And I said, okay, well, this is an example, many years later, of a miracle that led me to look at medicine, when I realized that I myself had a little, what you call it, a little scruff with death, right? So that opened my eyes to the field of medicine.
Was there something about that picture that really called you to this field?
No, because I didn't realize what a miracle it was until many years later. You know, many things happen in our life that are seeds that are planted that only grow when we're ready for them to grow.
That's
like
true.
all the things my mother told me when I was growing up, right?
But they still echo through the years,
But they're
right?
here, and they're always like, oh yeah, my mother told me that, you know? It's like when the seed is ready, it grows. So that, many years later, I realized that that was my first bug and my first miracle that led me down a certain path. Just like everything, you have to say thank you, just like Dr. Marshall said, right?
Yes.
Like, thank you for that bug. So I went on to return to the United States and follow the path to become a physicist. I went into computer science as a major, worked at NASA, programmed some satellites. And I thought, no, I need some people and some other things. I switched over and started working at the National Cancer Institute with mice. And when the fourth year came and I had to choose, I hadn't given it any thought. So I told my father when he asked me what I'm going to do, I said, I'm going to go to medicine. And I went to apply and realized that I hadn't planned anything, so I didn't have the right
The right
courses,
yeah.
didn't take the MCAT test. So I took an extra year and applied to medicine and got in. And I thought, okay, this is a straightforward path. You get educated and you're able to help people. But I wasn't committed to it like I should have been, right? It wasn't like a passion of any sort. So I got into the medical school. I ended up going to University of Maryland and staying at home. I really wanted to stay as close to home as possible because I had already done boarding school and been away from home for a long time. And I'm going to make a long story short there, where I went through medical school at University of Maryland, then went into OBGYN, had my father wondering what I could do to help him. He's like, "You're going into OBGYN?"
He's
like,
selfishly,
"How are you gonna
right? Need your benefit.
What's going to happen?" So, but it was a great journey because every book of mine was donated to me by a pharmaceutical company.
Really?
And all of the studies inside the books came from pharmaceutical funded studies, which didn't really strike me. At that time, I was so grateful. I'm like, oh, thank you so much for giving me this book, right? But it only drove home after I came out of Georgetown, went into private practice, and then started working for an international company called Engender Health. And I started working on the Safe Motherhood Project to reduce maternal mortality throughout the world. I got to travel. I got to travel through Kenya, Tanzania, Egypt, Morocco, Nepal, by foot to many places, Bangladesh, northern India.
Was this your first time really exploring?
Common thread
Yeah.
I saw was that they knew more than me in the practical level. And I was there to teach them about maternal mortality. And what I learned from this is that these traditional birth attendants had all the confidence in the world that came down from their ancestors, passed from one place to the other, and the people had confidence in them. And that system totally worked. And I also saw a lot of little things, how they turned the baby when it was not in the right position, or all the other little things they did. So at the end of that 7 years, when I was ready to join a traditional medical practice where they had a great package, but I was seeing patients for 7 minutes a pop, I quit. I just left it.
Yeah.
And that was 13 years into practicing conventional medicine, doing surgery, pharmacy, all of that. But my eyes had been opened. I had such a blessing, right? So that's what sort of brought me into the space of functional medicine, because I really didn't know what I was going to do when I quit. But I saw, I came by this psychic who told me something to do, and you're going to practice East and West, mind, body, spirit medicine. And actually, somebody in the crowd the other day said, yeah, I think I saw you at that mind, body, spirit conference. And so, long story short, in 2003, when I quit, I ended up opening Sejun Institute for Restored and Regenerative Medicine, because I was going to do natural medicine, and I was going to help people restore their nutrition and restore their detox and restore their hormones. But I'm basically someone who always is looking for simplicity. And when I started going to the large conferences that are in that field of functional medicine, I would come back from any conference with 100 different pieces of information that didn't fit into any framework. And I was like, no, this has to be simple and elegant, right? So it started to become very much close to my study of conventional medicine, where there was 1 million tests, 1 million different supplements or methods you could use. And there was no framework that was basic, right? So I started to work on this basic framework, and I was really fortunate because when I opened my doors, I only had 5 patients the whole month. Nobody knew me. It was in Orlando, and I was on a hospital ground, and I was the witch doctor. So it was great because I had 5 patients that first month, so I could take almost a week for every patient, call all the integrative functional medicine practitioners, and learn,
Yeah.
learn on every patient and take a week to put their program together. But this was such a great blessing, because 6 months later we were full and we were adding new people, and we weren't advertising. I really opened the center without a concept of business, because we're never taught that, right?
No,
A concept of marketing or anything like that. But we just got lucky, and a lot of the doctors and the nurses from the hospital started seeing us. And I was looking for simplicity, so I really started where my field was. As an OBGYN, hormones was a field.
Yeah.
But of course, the junkie hormones, right?
Of course.
So I started to delve into every single study, everything about bioidentical hormones and natural hormones. And I started to realize that we really focus on estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, the ovarian or the testicular hormones. And that's what hormone therapy is.
Right.
But what I started to realize is there was something much, much deeper. That was the tip of the iceberg. Because what lay underneath was thyroid and then adrenals. And the adrenals were pretty much, at that time, 20 years ago, I would say about 5% of people had an adrenal issue. But it was enough for me to see that if you had an adrenal issue, you had a thyroid issue, because it knocked off your thyroid receptors. And if you had that issue, all of the ovarian and testicular hormones would be shunted towards the adrenal gland, and you just would not be functioning. And fixing it at the level of the tip of the iceberg is not where you had to go. You had to go to the bottom.
Correct.
And that was a great blessing, because only 5% of people had that profile. But now 95% plus of people have that profile. So now it's really became relevant. As the 20 years rolled on, we just became better and better and better and better at fixing the adrenal thyroid axis without hormones, because that's not actually how you fix it, right? You fix it by fixing the nervous system. So very soon after that, I realized that you can't really activate hormones without nutrition. And then you can't really do hormones and nutrition without detoxification. And then you had to pay attention to the oxygenation of the body. And then you have to pay attention to the most important thing, which is the state of the heart and the mind, the state of our subconscious and conscious stressors that actually burn through the fuel tank of nutrition and hormones if you don't control it. So by 2007, we had a model that had a framework. And the framework was to optimize nutrition, detoxification, hormones, body and mind. Like optimize the fuel tank, get it to the 75th percentile, not the normal range, optimize detoxification, and then the stresses in the mind and the body. So when we hit that, we started seeing really great results, because it was very empowering, it was pretty easy framework, and then if I did collect 100 pieces of information from every conference, I knew where it fit, right? So I knew what order to go in, and a lot of doctors started to train with us because we had a basic framework that was just easier than what was out there. And that was all great. And we went forward like that for almost 8 years. When I started to really examine the mission of affecting humanity, of transforming humanity, and I say transforming humanity with regenerative protocols that work. Because the model worked. 85% of every condition that came through the door got reversed. Energy, sleep, weight, mood, pain, all kinds of conditions, diseases, things like that. But when you look at all the modalities that we used, and we also used things like acupuncture, chiropractic, Reiki, all of it. You have to open your mouth to, your mind to all of it. It was missing something that could never help humanity, and that was the access And access to care from this level of people was very expensive. It wasn't covered by any kind of
Correct, yeah.
insurance. You paid all this money to see a functional medicine doctor or whatever you want to call them, and then you paid all this money for supplements, and you basically went broke, which means a very small part of the population could actually afford this kind of care.
Right.
So
Sounds like the antithesis
it
of
was
health
like
a
the
little
end
bit,
of the
right?
whole road, because I was like, okay, like great, but like who can you really help with this? So I kind of sat on that, and I told you about the first bug. The second bug that I had came from my dogs. I developed a parasite, and on developing that parasite, I had full confirmation that this was the right path, because nobody could cure me. I actually would have died from that if it hadn't been for Dr. Marshall stepping in and working through and with Dr. Todd Gegerson to tell me, go into the ocean, eat raw meat, which I was a vegetarian at the time, and my temperature and my weight, which were really cascading, came back up. And I was like, yeah, this is the only form of medicine. You know, the first was a miracle. The second was using giants. Dr. Marshall was a giant, right? I remember when I called him and I told him what was going on. I had spots all over my body from the foot to the neck. And I remember him telling me the very first thing you have to do is say thank you. I'm like, thank you? I said, yeah, thank you. That's the very first thing you do, whether it's something you consider good or something you consider bad. The first thing you do is you say thank you, because there's always a reason in it. And there was such a powerful message in that, because when I got over it, I didn't question anything of where I was going with this whole journey.
Yeah.
And of course, it allowed us to take the journey with a lot of confidence, because clarity brings confidence.
It does.
So we did the journey, trained a lot of physicians, like thousands of people, and then hit this spot where we really couldn't reach the masses. The program was too expensive. So I sat on that, and then came the third bug, which was really a great one, which is I started to notice that all of my colleagues were burning out, retiring, and then the great thing that happened that I said thank you for is that I ended up burning out and hitting a wall, and I couldn't even get up. I couldn't see patients, couldn't do anything. So I said, okay, this is a good time to go to Costa Rica. My daughter had gone to study there, and I was like, okay, I'll go into Costa Rica. And in immersing myself in that environment with nature, I started to understand what they were saying about the blue zones. And we have a lot of people who've studied the blue zones and identified 5 blue zones in the earth, which is really, there's hundreds of blue zones on the earth. They studied 5 of them. And they focused on things like diet and exercise and movement and things like that. But what I noticed is that these people were highly connected to all the elements of nature, their tribe, and most importantly, joyful purpose, all the way to up above the hundreds, whether they were climbing mountains or tending to goats or contributing to the community somehow. And I felt that that was the most important component. And when I started to look at it, I was like, oh, they're like in the sun. Their feet are connected to the ground and the earth. They're structuring their water by the pure vibration of joy that they're in. And a lot of times the water is coming from like pure sources and is structured, so they're detoxifying. Their lives are a lot slower and more balanced, so their breathing is a lot more conscious. And most importantly, they're living in joyful purpose connected to nature and tribe. And so all of a sudden those 5 areas that I talked about could be enhanced or even replaced by using the sun, the earth, the water to detoxify, breathing deeply and making sure that you're always connected to a passion and tribe and nature. So I was like, aha, let's try this and see if we can reach these younger college people and these younger people who are in a crisis. Like you watch the people who are coming to us, I just want to live a little longer, live a little better, but wait a minute. The generations behind us are falling apart. They're in a crisis. How do we reach them with our expensive model, right? So that is the beginning of what led to Take My Power Back initiative. What happened is in 2017, I had been thinking about like how to do this. So I started to write protocols, and the protocols talked about the long living and how to, protocols for healthy gut, protocols for vibrant energy, protocols that would empower people to take the protocol and do it on themselves and really utilize the power of nature's connections in the 5 areas that I just told you about. And yes, a supplement here, a supplement there, but it wasn't supplement heavy. It wasn't purchase heavy. It was really based on this. So we tested it, and we tested it in the hands of coaches that had been trained in the 5 areas to see, and they don't have any specific background. So we started to test this. COVID came along, and COVID went. And the biggest blessing of all happened, which is that more and more people wanted self-directed care, and especially in the younger generations. They wanted self-directed, empowering care. So that's where the Take My Power Back initiative was launched. So I launched it in a slow way just very recently on an Instagram, and share all of the tools and the tips that have very good science behind them, but that are absolutely the core of turning back on innate self-healing, which we all have, and it's kind of turned off.
It is.
So innate self-healing is the core of regeneration, and you can turn it back on by looking at the sun in the morning, letting it get into your eyes, connecting yourself to the earth. Get naked and connect yourself to the earth. Drinking 100 ounces of water a day and structuring it, putting minerals in it, pink salt and lemon, simple detoxification. Conscious breath, and making sure that whatever you do in life, it's a passion, and that you are connected to a much larger source of power, which is human collective consciousness and nature. That's our power. And once we realize that we can do those things, we take our power back.
Amen. When I hear you speak, it is just like a breath. And it's so affirming to our mission here at Premier, but I feel like the mission of a collective group of individuals that are really trying to do the good work in
Yes,
life.
you guys do the best work. That's the reason why I really, really have always prayed to work side by side on the mission.
I know there's so many, as we've discussed today, and we'll have many more discussions. I mean, we're opening a new era here at Premier.
Yes, the earth has opened up a new era,
it
so
is.
we all had to.
We're moving
It's
through
like, okay,
that.
humanity is on a new phase now.
If you were to maybe define this new era, what value or what philosophy would this new era embody? And maybe that's an essence of...
That's a really good question. We have been in an era where decisions and paths and actions and relationships are often driven by fear, competition, division, maybe those three are at the top. And we know that we reached the tipping point and we tipped into and up to a new era on this earth where the frequency of love dictates everything, unity, cooperation. We as a human race have the strongest power in our heart, not our brains necessarily. Like eventually the brain has to come along, but if you look at where we were, we were in the technocratic, thinking-driven humanity. That's over. We have to be at the frequency of love. If you look at what I understand Einstein answered in his later years when he was asked, out of all the forces you've studied, what is the most powerful force? And the answer was, people will understand this 30 years from now. The most powerful force is that of love. And sometimes I think about, did he really say that? Or did somebody make it up? But it doesn't really matter because it is the truth.
It's true.
It is the truth. It is the most powerful force that exists. And we are running in that era. And we are so blessed to be here during this time when this is visible. It's not happening. It's happened. The tipping point has been reached, and you can see it from the people you talk to, the things that are happening on this earth, that the chaos only woke us up to who we are as humans.
It is. Amen. It's that the element to which we're all aware of, but sometimes we push down, right? And society in the past has pushed it down, but now it's saying, come out.
It can't be pushed down, right? Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. Like exactly what you said. It's so right. It's like there's no way to push down such a powerful force. And that powerful force, when it's united, there's a collective, we call it consciousness, but it's really about the collective heart field, not just the electromagnetic force you can measure, but the field that you can't measure. It's so powerful that it leads us to a beautiful, beautiful place. And we can all look forward to it because it is absolutely happening.
In every single moment, and I feel blessed to be here with you because it is kind of, we're taking those steps to, educate and empower people in our network and in our base and beyond to kind of wake up and to take action to embody that. Because it naturally resonates. Correct.
Like I know, I've been watching over this conference, we all nod our head when something resonates, and all these things, these concepts that we're moving into resonate. The concept of competition or division, it doesn't resonate anymore. It's like, what are we talking about? That's not there anymore. Oh, I have to do this because I'm scared that'll happen, or that doesn't even, it doesn't even apply right now.
Correct.
It's so cool. I love it.
I do too. I feel, my journey in so many ways has been, you move away from the aspects of the not self, and the self that is of fear, right?
Yes,
and,
yes.
As you grow up, you're exposed to these fearful elements, and you have maybe the expectations and the burdens of your parents or grandparents, and as you decondition yourself, you get to have the opportunity to embody that place of love. And I guess my question for our viewers and people listening in, if they could make maybe one conscious decision in their day, like what would be a practical strategy to tune into that frequency more readily in their life?
So of course you're asking me for one practical
I know,
strategy.
I like one.
And I'm sitting here wondering about whether or not this is a real thing.
It's beautiful.
But the beginning practical strategy, but sometimes it seems so unpractical, is to really love yourself. And that sounds like a little bit of a cliche term, but when you think about where our decisions are made, are we making decisions that feed us, that really make us stronger, or are we accepting things that we know won't? And the reason why that's so important, and it's not selfish at all, is because the ripple that we put out from our heart reaches the other side of the universe. So when we start with the love for ourselves, our cells, and in between every cell, and we are able to get into our heart of making practical decisions that feed us and feed our spirit, and letting go of all of the things that we give energies to that don't serve us. Mm-hmm. It's time to let go of the things that don't serve. So I think that's one practical way to start. And a way there is literally to connect to nature. Get yourself grounded, get yourself in the sun, drink your water in the morning, and you will realize what a beautiful creature you are, and how blessed you are, and how much of a responsibility you've been given to have this body that's the temple that we have to take care of in order to ripple out any form of love or energy towards anything else. Has to start right here.
How does somebody get away from the fear of, when you are serving yourself and loving yourself and choosing choices that are for yourself, right? And empowering that self-love that then radiates out back into the world.
Exactly.
Right?
You said it perfect.
There is this destructive quality that some people might perceive that act being in terms of the life they've lived before. And I know.
You mean the perceived quality from other people?
Correct. It's everybody can wake up and change their life every single day. They can choose an action that they didn't choose the day before.
Yay.
Right? But there is this limiting belief, I believe, of that it will cause chaos in their world. Right?
Because people will view them as selfish.
Correct.
And we are moving towards an earth where more and more people are understanding the power of the golden you. So I think, first of all, a tipping point has been reached. Like, we are literally in a new era. And that tipping point is helped by those of us who embody and live out that self-love and educate others. Hey, I'm doing this for me, for you, for everyone else. And we're advanced enough to get that now. When I tell people about that, nobody's like, oh, that sounds selfish. Nobody. And this is literally what I've been really sharing with the patients that I've seen. I still see patients, and the very first step is to make a list of everything you're committed to and put them in golden circle 1, circle 2 isn't golden, and circle 3. And get rid of everything in circle 3 for 30 days. And at the end of 30 days, they're like, I'm like, oh, you can add things back. Well, I don't want to add things back. People are noticing the difference. I'm making more of a difference now.
Yeah. It's allowing you to be fully aligned with your purpose in life.
And people see it and feel it, and it's contagious.
It is.
Love for yourself is absolutely contagious.
Makes my heart smile.
Most unselfish thing you
right.
can do.
It very much so in my journey with Premier, and why I've been so fortunate to grow up with this organization is it's just, I didn't even realize how aligned it was with my purpose until I even further understood my purpose, right? And sometimes we're blessed to find ourselves in those circumstances. And
well, because you intuitively chose it.
Right.
Like, maybe you didn't consciously know, but your subconscious, which detects and really dictates 95% plus of whatever it is that you end up doing, your subconscious knew.
You're meant to be everywhere, even if you don't think you're meant to be there, right?
Right, you're like, what am I doing here? Oh, okay, I know what I'm doing here, in this mud.
Right. It's just healing me on every level. Is there a question you like to really empower people to ask in themselves every single day?
I would just say that it's very important to congratulate yourself for any one step that you have taken for yourself every day. Because one step for yourself is one step for humanity. And when you congratulate yourself because of the attention you put on it, energy flows where attention goes. So it means that as we do one thing, we're likely to do another thing, and likely to do even one more thing. Because it's really a law of something. Call it the law of physics, I don't know. But energy flows where attention goes. So instead of thinking about what we didn't do, what did I do yesterday that was for me? Even if it was just to listen to this one little thing for 2 minutes. What did I do? It kind of feeds into the fact that our field is only one in humanity. And it's expansive, and it's endless. And there's no possibility that one person is having a suffering, and that suffering on one side of the planet is not felt by the whole planet, whether you watch the news or not. It's a field. It's transmitted underground, overground, every single way. So the same goes for laughter, smiling, and happiness. We spread that in the field by being that. We spread love in the field by being love. So if we've done any one act that has put a smile on our face or that is for ourselves, we should congratulate ourselves. So I know you asked me what question you would ask, but it's more about something you would do to create more of a wave.
That's true. I mean, and I feel like a good question in me, and maybe that's my design, is creating those waves and ripples. But
what can I do to create a wave today?
Correct, right.
Yes,
That's
what
kind
can
of
I
my
do? Yes, what can I do? Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. So that is the question then.
That is.
We got the answer.
It's the same.
The answer.
See, look at that. We connected on that. You know, talk to me, or talk to maybe the audience. There's a lot of different, you know, we've talked about simple strategies and connecting to Mother Earth, and you know, choosing to structuring your water. What's been a staple out of all of those that's been truly transformative in your life in terms of those simple solutions that you would just really iterate? That's something, you know, maybe somebody is in a megapolis like New York, or they're in this, you know, this place of urban development, and they're not, sadly, in Costa Rica or you know, in one of these blue zones.
Yes.
How can they be that oasis, or how can they find that oasis in these places?
Well, that's a really good question. And the fact of the matter is that the cells in your body and the spaces between the cells do not know the difference between a virtual experience and a real one. And that is why things like heart math, where you put yourself and drop yourself into a virtual reality, can alter the heart rate variability so quickly and alter the structure of the water in your body so quickly. So if you are able to seek out a tree, then yes, go to the base of the tree. Hopefully dogs haven't peed in it. And hug the tree. Ground yourself for a moment. If not, then get a glass of water in the morning, find some sunlight or the sky to look at, and pause, breathe, put some intention in your water and drink it. It's very simple, but it's very, very powerful. Very powerful. So for me, watching being in the morning sun and watching the sun come up is very, very important. I could give you the science behind that. It reprograms the circadian rhythm in your body and the pineal gland, but just do it and feel it.
You don't need
Who
to know the
cares what the
science.
science
You feel
is?
the science.
You feel it, you know, like who really needs the science? Exactly. It's like you know that it's happening, you know, when you're doing that. So if there was one thing I would say, and you can't see the sun or whatever, imagine the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Close your eyes and imagine the sun. Drink the water. Imagine your feet in the soil connecting to the electromagnetic field of Mother Earth.
And you'll be there. You'll be connecting with
You'll be
it.
there.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
mind is able to create anything
That's true.
and manifest anything.
So-
Our thoughts, our words, our actions. Sometimes stuff shows up and you're like, no, I didn't create that. Yes, you did.
Mm. And maybe the question to ask is, why is it there? Or maybe the statement to say is thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I love the thank you. It's like, no, thank you. And then what's in it? What's in this message? You know? Humanity is so powerful. We're creating what we're seeing. It's not happening to us. It's happening by us. Like, you know, we look at the chaos in the earth and we think, well, the world has come into a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, it's the way that our hearts are working and our brains are working. And as we as a collective start to alter the rhetoric that we're telling ourselves, the paradigm shifts from an earth that is divisive and fearful and in chaos, and it shifts to a place of love and unity and cooperation. So we have so much power, and we have so much power as one, and so much power as two, and so much power as three, and more in collective.
Amen.
So we just have a lot of power over what's happening.
I believe we are going through a global detoxification, and we each are given the blessing of being the catalyst
Yay.
to that detoxification.
Yes.
And
I love that word.
it,
Catalyst.
it's just
Catalyst.
it works if you feel it. Well, do you have any other reflections that you would love to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I really am so grateful that you decided to ask me these questions, and I've never really been asked these questions like that in a sequence. So I'm really happy to get a chance to share some of the things that I've learned over the years. So thank you so much.
Thank you
Feel
for
very
sharing.
blessed.
It's a blessing. I'm sure
Yes,
everybody
thank you.
listening
Yes.
feels that blessing. And
Yes,
you're a gift.
we
your
have
presence.
the power to create anything, do anything and everything.
In every single moment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Patti.
Thank you.
And to all those who have listened in, thank you for your
Yes.
presence.
God bless you. Thank you very much. Yeah.